cooking. What are some of your unique kitchen setup ideas to improve convenience and practicality? I feel like this question isn't asked much. I love hearing about little life hacks. Let's try to avoid the constantly repeated basics like sharpen your knives, clean well, salt, season pans, etc. I will start off. I use a $20 gigantic cutting board from IKEA as a table supplement. It has a hook piece that prevents it from moving. I never cut on this thing. I clean it like a table too. This allows me to put hot cookware directly on top, dampen it first with a wet towel or hell just some water and your hand. Who cares if this $20 item is burnt? It's extremely convenient and makes multi-dish cooking so much easier because I can just throw the hot pan onto the table without thinking. I use 4 coat hanger hooks on the wall next to the sink. 3 towels and heat protection pads. 1 towel for wiping clean hands. A 2nd towel for wiping clean utensils. A 3rd towel for wiping clean cutting boards. I put a towel on the table next to the sink. It's held down by a paperweight. Whenever I finish washing my knives, I can easily wipe them dry to make sure they do not rust. I use blue and white steels. I got a silicone sink drying rack and I cut it in half. I use this for straining directly into the sink. I would put the food into the strainer, then put the strainer onto this rack. The liquid will flow into the sink. This prevents me from needing to strain it manually over the sink, which can take time. Or straining it over a bowl. Now I have another thing to wash into. It also allows me to wash things simultaneously while straining into the sink, which you cannot do if you just put the strainer inside the sink. These little things aren't important, but they make the cooking experience so much faster and easier that it's worth it 100% every single time. I don't know if this counts, but I eat a lot of vegetables and we have one of those crisper drawers in our fridge. I take the whole thing out and put it on the counter to put away groceries or to get out ingredients. So much easier to make everything fit, and cause you're not digging around trying not to let all the cold out of the fridge. You're more likely to find bits and pieces that need to be used up. That's brilliant. I did something similar when I cleared out an old junk dresser the other day, but I hadn't thought of applying it to fridge drawers. I hate how long I always have the fridge open when unloading. Dang, I just read up a bit and I realized you can also control the humidity of your crisper drawer to make sure your fruits and veg stay fresh. I'd hardly call it unique, but I'm a wall hook junkie. My most used utensils are on hooks directly above the stove, cooling racks are on a wall hook, oven mitts are on a wall hook, towels at every turn on a wall hook, in addition to an apron towel, etc. I also replaced my spice cabinet doors with sliding doors because I access that area often, above the stove as well, and hit my head on the swinging doors more than I'd care to admit. While I had the option of keeping a trash can in a pull-out cabinet, I opted for a covered floor trash can. That way I can move it around to the most convenient location for whatever I'm doing, even though it takes up walking space. Really, what helps the most is strategic placement of things so I don't need to move around much to get what I need for the station I'm at. As an example, I don't need my knives when I'm at the stove, I need them at the prep station. After imagining my kitchen divided into stations, it helped to organize what I need where I need it. I found some powerful magnetic hooks that I use on the overhang of our oven vent. I hang a bunch of utensils that way. I have more space now, but at my apartment, I had a cutting board that was medium-sized with handholds and I put up command hooks to put that bad boy on the wall. 100% easier to access and dried by itself that way. Now I have my oven mitts, measuring cups, and hot pads up on the side of my refrigerator within easy access. Maybe not unique, but I use drip mats instead of a dish strainer. A dish strainer gets gunky if you don't scrub it out after every use, whereas a drying mat can be chucked into the wash. A dish strainer also takes up counter space, which I don't have a surfeit of. Speaking of counter space, I make extra surface area by putting one of my smaller cutting boards across an open drawer. In our kitchen we keep a handful of trash bags inside our trash bin, underneath the trash bag currently being used. Then, for the next several cycles of taking the trash out, we don't have to go somewhere else to fetch the next empty bag. This is an ancient janitor's trick. I literally put a whole roll down there. Stealing this. I use a little rolling counter to prep on, and wheel it over to the stove when I start to cook. It's got hooks for towels, tongs, stainless pan, knife steel, and a couple shelves for utensils so everything is within reach. I have one for outside grilling and it's a game changer. I have 4 small IKEA countertop metal shelves, set up 2 wide and 2 high and bolted together, sitting to the side of my stove, with a drawer liner piece below it, that can hold the majority of spices I use, with less common ones in the cupboard. I use the glass IKEA spice shakers and spice grinders for nearly all my spices. I have 2 of those wall rod hanging basket shelves on the other side of my stove, and one perpendicular to the spice rack along the fridge, all lined with plastic shelf liner, where I keep larger bottles of oils and spices, and wines and sauces etc. They're just on the counter, and the hanging handle is folded down. I have another smaller of those baskets hanging up where I keep my pan rags, which I use for wiping my cast iron and carbon steel pans after cooking or rinsing. I have another container which I keep a small oiled rag in for seasoning the cast iron and carbon steel after drying. I have a long ceramic display dish made for candles or something on the side of my sink for a scouring sponge, a metal scrubby, dish soap and hand soap, which is my doing dishes tray. On the other side of the sink I have another container with a different scouring sponge, a different metal scrubby, a reusable rinsing mesh towel, and a hand towel, which I use only for cleaning the stove top, counters, and sink immediately after cooking. I transfer my dish items to my counter cleaning items box when they get older, and throw the counter cleaning ones out when they fall apart, then open some new ones for the dishes tray, so I can use them twice as long. I have another container for cast iron brushes and bamboo wok brushes, natural brushes etc. I have a giant metal storage rack in my kitchen, 6+ feet high, and a smaller square one beside that of the same height, and square one half the height up on the counter, so they are all in an even line. The shelves are lined with heavy liner and I keep all my pans and all my cast iron, enameled cast iron, on it, as well as one shelf on it devoted only to lids, with 3 or 4 of those wooden IKEA lid holders end to end stretching the length of the shelf. I have a piece of shelving on one of the square racks where I keep my Instant Pot Vortex Plus 7-in-1 air fryer convection oven. Other shelves are for boxes of attachments and accessories for other kitchen appliances and baking equipment etc. Hanging on the metal racks from S-hooks are all my mixing attachments for the KitchenAid, bigger wok utensils, larger tongs, etc. I have 2 large heavy glass pitchers, one for wooden spoons and tongs, and one for metal spoons and ladles and whisks etc., and one large round metal utensil basket for all my silicone stuff. I have 2 long heavy-duty power strips each with individual power on/off switches for each outlet, with the outlets all named, for my air fryer, large Instant Pot, small Instant Pot, Ninja Blender, Vitamix, KitchenAid, toaster etc. All of my appliances are on one counter, and I can turn them on or off individually, which is great for the Instant Pot appliances as they don't really ever turn off, and to prevent accidental overloading. I have hooks all over the other walls in my kitchen to hang pans on, from floor to ceiling, where I hang a variety of other pans, such as my carbon steel woks and pans, and some nicer stainless steel sauté pans, pizza peels, etc. Have a ladle holder next to the stove so you don't have to put your spoon or spatula on the counter. Good idea. I have a silicone mat specifically for the same reason. Handiest thing? The magnetized bar on the wall for knives. Grab knife, use it, clean it off, slap it back up. So much faster than threading the needle back into a knife block, can also hold metal fork, tongs or spoon. Best of all, in my tiny kitchen it uses up zero counter space. Love these things. I found one that is a dual-sided magnet strip. Fits on the side of my fridge right next to where I do the most prep work, holds 8+ knives, super sturdy. I was so happy to find that solution because we don't have a lot of wall space suitable for a magnet strip in our kitchen. I once built a pizza shelf system. I love making pizzas, and in order to be able to eat some of them myself, I used to roll out the dough for 4 or 5 pizzas in advance, so I could just put on sauce and topping, pop it in the oven, prepare the next one, etc. They were baked in 8 minutes apiece. The last one or maybe last 2 in 7 or 6 minutes. The problem was, I had a very small kitchen, so there wasn't tabletop space enough for 5 pizzas. So I made a shelf system, 5 wooden shelves 10 cm apart held together by 3 legs on the sides so the front was open for my pizza spade. Worked a charm. Counter, cutting board placed center. Above the cutting board is a cabinet full of all my spices alphabetized, and various baking supplies, flour, etc. To the right of that cabinet is all of my prep dishes, measuring cups, bowls, etc. Below the cutting board is my utensil junk drawer, cap opener, microplane, bench scrape, TBSP measures, etc. Directly above the cutting board, mounted to the wall, is my magnetic knife strip. Oven. I mounted a bunch of screws around my oven that I hang all my pots, pans and the most commonly used oven, stove utensils, ladles, tongs, spatulas, gloves, etc. I like the idea of not having to constantly run around my kitchen grabbing stuff. So, everything I need for the cutting board and prep is within arm's reach. Same with the stuff I need when cooking on the stove. Oh, also, I have a Google Doc that has all my pantry items and spices and how much of each I have left. This was so if I was at work and contemplating a recipe I could pop open the Google Doc and see what I need to pick up on the way home. WFH has made this pretty obsolete at this point. I just made a Google Doc with all my pantry stuff too. It's great when you're struck by inspiration and need to know whether you have to stop to pick things up or not. I have mine separated into tabs too: baking, oils/vinegars/spices, dried, canned, etc. I keep measuring cups in all my baking items and a knife to level them off. I also write the recipes in Sharpie on all my large Rubbermaid containers. I bake a lot of bread, buns, baguettes, pizza dough, and having the recipe and measuring cups right in on the bins makes it a breeze.